Revolutionary Sports Show. I think it's been years since we've done the last show, so I don't even really know where to begin at this one. But I'm Brian Duchaine.
And I'm Corey Sullivan.
We're back at it, although we are in two separate locations. Like always, we had to give one back to the fans here. Come back and do a Revolutionary Sports Show, especially with how the Mariners have been playing lately. They got a ton of all-stars on their team. I'm thinking World Series right now. Corey, what are you looking at with the Mariners?
It was just another season, to be honest with you. It was Mariners fans, every year they're like, oh, this is our year for the World Series. But it's just not realistic. The team just doesn't look good. The pitching is absolutely atrocious. And the hittings are just not there right now. Nelson Cruz and Robinson Cano doing okay. Seager not doing terrible, but definitely not putting up superstar, all-star numbers that you need from a guy like him, especially with how depleted this roster is. But through the first month of the season, what did we learn? The same thing that we learn every year. Nothing. There's nothing that you can learn from the first month of the season. A lot of injuries going on. Felix, definitely a headliner for the Mariners. What do you think of Felix's injury, and do you think it'll have any lasting effects?
Well, it's always interesting with Felix. We kind of saw him on the downward spiral last year. He kind of held himself together a little bit just to kind of salvage the season a little bit. But I feel like he's been on a downward spiral for a while. So this year I didn't really expect him to have what he usually did. And his velocity, I think, is down to around 92, 93. So it's not the same fastball that we've been seeing. And if he doesn't have his control, he's in big trouble now, because he used to just be able to come out there and overpower everybody with his fastball. And now he's just trying to hold on and kind of be a pinpoint pitcher. And it's just not what he has been. And it kind of reminds me of Justin Verlander going out there and just owning everybody. And as of late, he's been not very good the last few years. And you can see it. It's catching up to him. He just doesn't have that arm speed that he used to. And Felix is no exception. So I think Felix's injury is really no surprise to me. He's getting up there in age. He's been around for a while. And when you're out there throwing high 90s with your fastball for that long, it's not really a surprise. And then it seems like every time he goes out there, even last year, he was kind of losing his velocity a little bit. And then he got injured last year too. They sent him down to single A Everett, and then he was up to triple A Tacoma, trying to get back his rehab starts, everything like that. But it's not really a huge surprise to me. And I don't think it's really a huge loss, because even when he was healthy, he's probably looking at maybe a 4.5 ERA, something like that, maybe around 5 if he's really not doing well. But I don't think that that's really big bucks caliber pitching right there. And if you're going to keep him around, then I don't know what you can really expect. You're really keeping him around to keep that, what do you call it, the Felix zone or whatever it is, the King's Court. They're doing it to keep the King's Court in business and everything like that. They got to pass around that turkey leg. The fans want to make something huge out of it, but it's just one of those things. They had Ichiro for so long, and he was way past his prime. They kept him to put people in the seats, and I feel like that's what this is with Felix. Is you're just not going to get what you used to get out of him. And although you can call him King Felix, because I guess he was good for so long, but I'm sorry, Felix, but unless you leave Seattle, you're never going to win a World Series.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been preaching that pretty much ever since we started doing the Revolutionary Sports Show, is that the Mariners need to get rid of Felix. And it's not Felix's fault. It's not his fault that he's a great player and deserves to be on a team that's going places. But, when they started making deals for Cano and started bringing on Nelson Cruz, and Seager was coming up and being the superstar that he is now, I believed that the Mariners could get to the postseason. I didn't think that they were World Series caliber yet, but I thought they'd get to the postseason, at least sneak in there with a wild card. But I don't know who this team down in Houston thinks they are. One of the best teams, if not the best team in baseball right now. But the Mariners just didn't have the ascension through the ranks that Houston has. I expected them to be just, similar with them. But the way that they had been drafting and the way that they have traded players has been awful. I can't think of one player worthwhile that the Mariners have drafted or traded for that has been good. Jerry Dipoto hasn't done anything positive, really. Maybe you can hang your hat on Gene Segura, but it's only been a month. Who knows what's going to go on with him? He's just made bad transaction after bad transaction after bad trade, and it's like, I really don't know how some of these guys get GM jobs. I really don't. It doesn't make any sense why this team looks the way that it does. We were talking about it before the show started. It looks like a foreign team. Like I've never covered this team before in my life. And I think, injuries has a lot to do with it. Iwakuma got placed on the DL. So, that's been our second best pitcher, not our, but the Mariners' second best pitcher for a couple years now. And, he's starting to decline. It's something that the Dodgers, when they signed him initially last year, that they knew that the decline was coming. So this is it for Iwakuma. He's a lot older than Felix. He's a lot older than all the pitchers on the staff. I think he's 36. Felix only 32. And I think Felix still has some years left in him. I don't think that the elite level that him and Kershaw were at for so long is there right now. But I think that he can be a very solid top of the rotation 1 or 2 guy for a contender. Definitely a 2 for, someone like the Red Sox. Him and David Price would be absolutely unstoppable. But I think this is, Dipoto, just like Zarenzik, his claim to fame was he traded Ichiro, and Dipoto, his claim to fame will be he traded Felix Hernandez. So both of them weren't around Seattle very long. I don't think Dipoto will be here very long. He hasn't done anything to warrant him staying or anybody in the organization staying. It's just, it hasn't looked good for the Mariners. It hasn't looked good since 2001, 2003-ish. And, with all the money that they had been spending, they're still not winning. I really don't know what the next step is for the Mariners, but I don't think it's looking good this year either.
Yeah, when you have like 100 and some million tied up in between 4 players, all making up your infield and outfield between those 4 players, you got, I believe it's Seager, Cano, Nelson Cruz, and one other one out there. Oh, it's actually Felix. So between those 4 guys, you don't really have a whole lot of money to spend elsewhere. And that's why we're seeing this AAA caliber bullpen coming out with all these guys we've never heard of. No offense to any of these guys, because I know it's probably the most exciting part in their career. They get to make their major league debut and say that they're playing on a major league team. But it's kind of what you get with the Mariners. You're not going to win with having a completely AAA bullpen going out there every night trying to hold it together. And right now they're staying in there because of their offense. And like you said, Iwakuma's on the DL. You got Paxton on the DL. You got Felix on the DL. Everybody's going on the DL. And I don't know if this is just because they said we're not going down with the ship, we're going to fake an injury, or if it's, actually that they're hurt and then they don't actually physically can play. So that's my thing. I can't really tell if they actually want to play or if they're just like, you know what? I don't want to do it. I don't want to go down with the ship with the Mariners. I'm just going to wave the white flag and go sit in the dugout a little bit, eat some peanuts, chew some tobacco. But, the Mariners aren't looking so good. They're over 500 for the first time in a while. But, I told people at the beginning of the season, they're winning 75 games at the end of the year. People still beefing with me because I said that, and I'll stick by it. I think even though they're above 500 right now and they're swinging the bats well, I'm really not sold on their pitching at all. And they will go on a losing streak like they do every year. They'll win maybe 5 in a row and then lose 10 in a row and then lose another 20 in a row after they win 5. So the Mariners are just so hot and cold all the time, and just kind of that thing. And Jerry Dipoto, not really a fan of him either. And if the Mariners actually made good decisions and everything, I would admit it. And I'd say the Mariners are actually looking good this year. They can do it. I don't know what Dipoto and that other dude in Arizona had going. I don't know if the guy in Arizona owed him a favor, but I don't know how they got Gene Segura for Taijuan Walker and Ketel Marte and Mitch Haniger in the deal. So I don't know. Maybe he owed him a favor. Maybe at spring training they were like, hey, man, I'll get this round of drinks if you give us Gene Segura. I have no idea what they worked out, but that looks like it's a good trade as of right now. But the rest of them, not very good. You got Dan Vogelbach, who can't even stay in the league right now. They keep sending him down. That was their marquee trade last year, was Dan Vogelbach for the man, Mike Montgomery, who ended up closing out the World Series. So I totally get where you're coming from on that one. And it's, just not looking so good for the Mariners. Even though they're 1 game over 500, they're not going to keep it. But we got the Angels and the Astros. Angels are looking okay. They're similar to Mariners status. Mike Trout on the DL, Albert Pujols jacking them out of the park. What do you see with the Angels? A little more or less than you would with the Mariners?
Well, I kind of see the same thing, and it's kind of what's plagued them. I think they're more talented, especially, having Mike Trout. It's kind of hard not to be more talented than anybody offensively in the league. But The thing that's really been their Achilles heel these last 2 seasons, especially, is their starting pitching. Garrett Richards has been, I think he's maybe played like 5 games, probably a little bit more. But, Tyler Skaggs all on the DL. And then, not only are their starters on the DL, but they also have pretty much all their closers on the DL as well. Their setup man's on the DL. And, you just can't succeed like that. And even if you do, the rest of the team has to be playing way above their head. And there's nobody even close to Mike Trout. Mike Trout hitting 355. And, I think the second closest player is Maldonado, the catcher. He's hitting like 270, and then everyone else is like 240 and below. It's pretty embarrassing watching the Angels play like this. But, Mike Trout's trying to keep them afloat. Pujols is chasing 600, so hopefully he gets there soon. But Cole Calhoun and C.J. Cron really have to step it up. And, Andrelton Simmons, Simba, with a name like Simba, I feel like you have to be great. Simba, when I think of Simba, I think of greatness. He's the king of the jungle, and Andrelton is far from the king of the jungle right now. There's a huge curve, a huge step up that he needs to take. And, Cameron Maybin is another guy that I have liked since he was in Florida. He was playing for the Marlins, but hasn't been able to reach his full potential. And right now he's only hitting 202. That was before today. I'm not sure how he did in today's game. Didn't watch the Angels game earlier today, or the Mariners game for that matter. I was too busy watching Real Madrid go to the Champions League final. But talking about baseball here, that's really it. I mean, there's nothing really else to say. Their starting pitching for the Angels is all hurt. Their stars, the 1 through 3 guys are just, they can't get it done, and then their closers have been hurt as well. So, not a whole lot you can do with, I don't even want to call it mediocre pitching. It's just bad pitching top to bottom, and then your guys aren't hitting. Mike Trout is the only one getting hits out there, so it's just it's surprising that they're 17-19 right now, to be honest with you. But I think that they have a much higher ceiling with a player like Mike Trout, a game changer, a once in a generation type of guy. I think that they'll have much more success, and we'll have a better chance of chasing these Houston Astros and the Mariners well in the long run.
Yeah, I think you can kind of lump the Rangers, the A's, the Angels, and the Mariners all into one category, because I feel like they're pretty much the same squad. You bring in all these guys with the Rangers, even they'll take a lead and bring in a guy with an ERA of 7, and then they end up losing in the bottom of the 9th or the bottom of the 8th. They'll just give it right back. You come into Safeco and they'll take a huge lead and then give it right back, just like the Mariners do all the time. So the Rangers, the A's, the Angels, the Mariners, they're all kind of about the same right now. They don't have a whole lot of good pitching, and the A's are always kind of one of those teams where you're like, hey, I know they don't put a whole lot of money into their roster, but what can they do? Can these guys prove themselves? And so far, not really, although they have been able to beat the Mariners a little bit. I'm just not real sold on any of those teams, but the Astros, I think, are going to take the division for sure. They're looking real good. And when you got a guy like Jordan Springer out there backing up Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa, could be interesting. Just balls flying out of the park everywhere. And then you got a guy like Dallas Keuchel holding it down with Houston, and their bullpen is okay. They got guys like Tony Sipp coming out of the pen where you're like, is this guy still in the league? But somehow he does okay when he comes in from the pen, and I think they're still trying to figure it out. That they're experimenting a little bit with moving their closer to the more 8th inning setup role with Will Harris. So I think they experimented with him a little bit last year in the 9th, and then they were like, no, we can't keep him there after he blew a couple games. But, he's been serviceable out of the pen also. So I think if there's anybody that you can actually put your finger on in the AL West, it's got to be Houston, if I'm going to be honest with it, because I just don't see anything greatness-wise from either of those other teams in there. So I'm going to stick with Houston for sure as being one of the favorites, but we're seeing a lot of teams in the MLB right now. They're just kind of either shaky, they're 500 that they should have been good teams, or there's teams like Cincinnati that are in first place. So I don't really know what's going to happen this season, because it's always kind of a weird time of year. After the first month, everyone gets too excited, and then everything works itself out. About July, you'll know who's who at that point. But yeah, what else are you seeing in the league that's kind of stood out to you a little more than what we've already talked about?
Well, another team that's up there with the Houston Astros as one of the best teams year by year, which is, I mean, that's just incredible to say. I cannot believe I'm saying the Houston Astros are year by year one of the best teams in baseball. But another team like that is your Detroit Tigers. I was getting ready to say the Lions, so I'm glad that I didn't say the Lions. But Detroit Tigers, and your man Verlander, I think he found the fountain of youth. He is getting back onto it. He has about a K per inning, which is a pretty cool thing, pretty tough to do as a starting pitcher. What do you see from your squad this year? Is there anything different or anything that you would like to see going forward?
Yeah, so K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, not doing well at all. They've lost countless amounts of games this year, and they're just around 500 right now. He's strictly the reason why they're around 500, and there's no other way to put it. They take leads into the ninth all the time, then he comes in and gives up. I think he's almost given up a run or more in every appearance that he's had this year as a closer, and that's not good. So he just got demoted from the closer role. I think they're going to use Wilson as the closer now, so we'll see how that goes. It can't be any worse than they already have been doing, but I think the closer role is really what they've been struggling with. I mean, you got guys like Miguel Cabrera out there, Nick Castellanos stepping up, and just guys really trying to contribute. Victor Martinez, he's doing okay, maybe low 200s right now. But JD Martinez on the DL. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when he comes back. But overall, I think the pitching just needs to step up. And I think now that they've made some changes, I'm not really a fan of Brad Ausmus personally as a manager. Waited way too long to make that closer switch. So I think now that they've made that, they may be a little bit better, but I just don't really think they're super great as of right now. So we'll see kind of how it turns around. But I don't think that division is very good either. So we'll kind of see what happens moving forward. But what have you seen out of the Tigers maybe that I didn't cover?
No, you pretty much covered it. There's, like we've said, there's not a whole lot going on in this first month of the year. There's not a whole lot you can learn. You can see that guys are either about the same pace they have been their whole career or something new. But yeah, the only thing that I would like to see differently, or not even differently, just as the season progresses, is I would like to see Miguel Cabrera being that powerhouse guy that he is year by year. And I don't think that he's going to prove anything differently. He's had a little slow start. Ian Kinsler, we need him to step up and be a factor, as when they brought him over, he had to be. And guys like Victor Martinez, who've been there for forever and a day, have been playing decent, and they just need to continue to play better. The one thing that I think is that I just find odd to me personally is that the Tigers just aren't stacked from top to bottom as they usually are. Not that Ian Kinsler and Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez aren't superstars. Absolutely they are. But I just, even Justin Upton, but I feel like there's, they're usually like, 6 or 7 guys in their starting or in their batting order that are, everyone is a household name. And right now, I don't see that from the Tigers. But, like we said, it's early on in the season, and that's just how I feel about, the Tigers right now.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll see what happens with the Central. I don't really see anybody that really stands out in the Central. Kansas City having a horrible year over there. Minnesota, decent, but not super great. Detroit and Chicago are all okay. So that's going to be kind of the best of the worst situation over there, because you can't really say any of them are super great. They don't have a whole lot of all-stars that are really flashing greatness right now. So there's not much to say about the AL Central right now, but it's going to be interesting in the East and even the West. The West, it's going to be I think a runaway for Houston. But as far as the East goes, you got the Yankees, who are playing really good baseball, and Boston chasing them. So that'll be interesting coming down the stretch. And then you got teams like the Orioles and Blue Jays added to the mix, Tampa Bay. So you never know what's really going to happen with that division. But the Yankees actually look like they've turned it around as of late. They just swept the Cubs in Chicago. Probably thanks to Hector Rondon coming in. They didn't have their closer ready in the ninth, so they had to go with Rondon. Due to the fact that Wade Davis was unavailable for that day, they gave it up in the ninth. And then they gave it up. I don't know if you watched that game the other night, but they ended up winning in the 18th. I stayed up almost all night watching it when I had to be up at 4 a.m. for work. But it wasn't really worth it because the Cubs didn't end up winning the game. But Yankees ended up pretty much winning off of an error. They laid a bunt down and Contreras threw it into right field. So, the Yankees found a way to win. I think they're looking good, but the Cubs really need to get it together right now as well because I believe they're about 500, maybe one over right now, but they're a way better team than they're showing right now. So I think keep an eye on the Cubs, but Cincinnati, I think, will fall behind a little bit. They're looking pretty good right now, but they don't have Ken Griffey Jr. anymore. I think he retired about, 5 years ago, something like that. So can't fall back on Ken Griffey Jr. or Sr. forever in Cincinnati. I just think their time's going to come to an end eventually. But who else is standing out to you so far?
I think just more. I don't think any team in particular is standing out. One reason being that every team hasn't played each other yet. So, I mean, I guess you can use the strength of schedule meter, but you can't really say that one team is the best or one team is better than another because they all haven't played each other. So, with the hand that they've been dealt, obviously Baltimore's playing great baseball right now, and the Mariners and Angels and everyone in the AL West is, they're playing baseball, I guess. The Astros are playing great baseball, and Cincinnati, you covered them. But there's a lot of teams that need to step up. I believe the Giants are last place in their division. The Tigers, who are generally, winning the Central, are towards the middle bottom of their division. And like I said, it's going to be a long season. Right now, if the season ended today, Ryan Zimmerman would be the MVP. Aaron Judge would be up there for MVP. Chris Sale, who's, he's generally pretty good anyway, so he'd be up there for the Cy Young. And Eric Thames, former Mariner, up there for the MVP, leading the league in home runs. So, like we said, and I believe that they didn't even trade him. I think that he was released. So, all right, maybe they traded him. I'm not sure. No, I don't know my Eric Thames stats. I apologize. So,
yeah, he was in Korea for a couple of years, and then he just randomly came back and started jacking.
Yeah, but I thought he went to like Toronto, and I don't know if they released him or if they traded some nobodies for him.
Yeah, I think he just got tired of playing, and he couldn't make a roster, so he went over to Korea and I guess had success over there, and then came back and suspiciously just is jacking him out of the park. So I don't know if you can say he's juiced. Maybe you can confirm that, but something's got to happen because I feel like
I don't think so. I mean, if you look at Eric Thames, he's a big dude, but he's been a big dude like that for a long time. He's just been awful at baseball, to be honest with you. But he's I don't think it's juicing. Otherwise, he would have got caught a long time ago. But he's playing well, and that's just an example of all you can learn in the first month of baseball is that some guys have a hot start, some teams have a hot start, have a favorable schedule, but at least baseball started. That's really all you can say at this point.
Yeah, I guess so. And then shifting gears a little bit, we'll do some bonus coverage. Seahawks draft picks. What are you thinking about Malik McDowell? Their first pick, but second round. Did they get a good value for Malik?
I am upset at myself. I'll say that. I'm upset at myself for believing that the Seahawks would keep their first round draft pick. I don't know why I got tricked. I feel like I go into every single year with so much hope and excitement that we have a first round pick and that we're going to do something crazy with it and draft something that we need. And then we end up not doing any of the above. I thought that we needed first of all, before I, just kill Malik McDowell, he's a good player. I like him on the team. But I feel like we just passed up on guys that were better options, especially with the pick that we had. We could have got Kevin King. It would have covered the cornerback need that we need. Another 6'3" guy. We would have had the Legion of Boom with two 6'3" guys. Remember when we had Brandon Browner and we went to the Super Bowl? Yeah, that was dope, wasn't it? Yeah, we would have had that same type of guy. Also, we could have got Cam Robinson, some other linemen, and, protect and rush should always be the Seahawks' number one priority. It's really easy what the New England Patriots do every year. They draft a humongous lineman to protect their billion-dollar quarterback, and then they win games. That's generally how it goes. You just protect the guy that gets you to the promised land. And not that Malik McDowell is not good. He's a great player. I'm not sad at all about it. I just wish that we would have picked differently. I feel like Malik probably would have been there later on. But, obviously the guys that I wanted and were really good players, they didn't last that long. So with who we got, I like him. But with what we needed, I didn't like that. So that's how I feel about Malik McDowell. Obviously a good player. I hope he does well, obviously. And, hopefully he can hold down that the middle, be the run stopper that we need him to be, or, whatever we need him to do, that he can do it. And but I believe in him. I think he's a good player. From your Michigan State Spartans, I love all the Sparties. My man Draymond Green is leading the Warriors to the promised land. So hopefully Malik and everyone else from, I believe it's Saginaw, will hold it down in Seattle this year. But what about you? How did you feel about it?
I thought it was a good pick, and that's what I was texting you about. I was like, they're about to take Malik, and they ended up taking him. And I know another one of my friends is kind of beefing a little bit that they didn't take the dude from Alabama. But, what can you say? Michigan State really relied on that guy. And so when you're really not doing well as a football team, you rely on one guy because you're like, this is our go-to guy. And that was Malik McDowell. And even you commented on it at the beginning of the season. You were like, hey, Malik McDowell, who is this guy? That guy is super good. And I was like, yeah, he is. He's a beast. He's going to be in the league. And he's fortunate enough to end up on the Hawks because the Hawks always need some defensive line help. And he can really stop the run. He comes out of nowhere. And I think it was a steal for them to get him. And then they got two other steals, although I hate to say it, from Michigan, Amara Darboh and Delano Hill. It's going to be huge. If they can make the team, which I think Darboh probably will as a 4 or 5 receiver, I think it'll be interesting to see because he's a speed demon. He can get open, and guys from Michigan State had trouble covering him. And then Delano Hill, great safety out of Michigan as well. So throw those guys in the mix. I think maybe start them on special teams, see what they can do. Give Darboh a little bit of playing time in there on actual snaps. It'll be a good time. And I'm actually excited to watch Michigan football players for once in my life. So that'll be interesting to see. And then also they got a guy, Mike Tyson, out of Cincinnati, which I don't think it's the same boxer, Mike Tyson, but who knows? Maybe he was named after him. Maybe he has the same intensity. Don't know a whole lot about him, but I do like that they picked a guy named Mike Tyson. And they also got an offensive lineman out of LSU in the 3rd round, maybe high 2nd round, I believe. So it was high 2nd round, early 3rd round. They got that lineman out of LSU. So that'll be huge to kind of season him with Tom Cable and let him learn the system a little bit, get him in there. So I can't say I'm disappointed with any of the Hawks picks. I know a lot of people are beefing. We didn't go after Buda Baker when they had that higher pick than they traded. So they traded twice down to the 2nd round. So if they would have kept their first pick, then they would have had a shot at Buda Baker. And they just missed out on Jabril Peppers. People were beefing about that one as well. But, when you trade down, I believe it was 7 or 8 spots, I think Malik McDowell was a steal in the 2nd round. So should be interesting. And August can't come soon enough so we can watch these guys on the field.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that we got Malik for a steal. I just don't think that he fit our needs. But I did not say this, but you did call that early on in the draft. I believe it was, I think maybe even before the draft started. You texted me and said, McDowell to the Seahawks? And I thought about it and I was like, nah, we need way more stuff than what Malik can offer us. But I'm not sad that we got him. You touched on it a little bit, that D tackle, that interior lineman, pretty much anywhere on our line is something that we've struggled to keep intact year after year. There's always some new guy. Always been serviceable. Brandon Mebane, Red Bryant, big boys. They're all in there. But I think Malik will be one of those permanent fits that year after year, who's going to be on the interior of the Seahawks line, and I think he's gonna. And he's a good player. I think that I don't think there's bust potential. I think he's going to be good. And it's just how good is he going to be? Pro Bowl caliber, MVP, or Defensive Player of the Year caliber? I don't know. But I like the pick. I just, I thought we could have used some other things that were available initially. Not at that point. At that point, I was like, I mean, yeah, I'll take him now. Everybody else is gone. So yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we have seen guys like Aaron Curry and Bruce Irvin go way too high before that. Everyone wasn't really sold on Bruce Irvin. Everyone was pumped about Aaron Curry. Bruce took way too long to come around. He really didn't look good out there for a while. Aaron Curry not even in the league after 3 or 4 years. So, I mean, they've had a lot of higher picks that haven't really worked out for him. Now Bruce over in Oakland. Aaron Curry went to Oakland, then his career ended. So I think this one, second round pick, I think it probably feels good for the Seahawks if they can trade away their first round pick every year and not really have to worry about anything. So I think that they're also good at getting some steals in later rounds. So I think that's why they went offensive lineman and maybe the late second round, early third round, rather than going first round. But I think it'll be interesting to see. I know you wanted Laramie Tunsil last year, didn't really fall into the Hawks' lap too far after all those videos were posted. And, you know, this year, I'm sure the guy that got selected by the Browns is sitting there going, oh, man, I should have leaked a bunch of videos of myself before the draft. I mean, maybe that would have been my strategy. Just go out and do a bunch of weird stuff and then post a bunch of videos, slip down to maybe 10 or 11th pick and be on a better team. I don't know. It's all in the strategy, but I don't know. Overall, in general, with the NFL draft, was there anything that kind of stood out to you a little bit more, or a guy that slipped way too far down?
To be honest, I think Jabril Peppers is probably top 5 player in this draft. I really don't know what is going on with this draft. I didn't watch the whole draft. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't watch like the last day. But I like Miles. But I don't think that he should have been one. He was the best player in the draft. And I think that the Jaguars are going to be good. I really like their pick, Leonard Fournette, going there. I liked Christian McCaffrey. Him and Cam Newton is going to be lethal. I'm sad that the only matchup where Carolina and the Seahawks will be for the NFC Championship. But I mean, you know, any meeting with Cam Newton and Russ is always a great game. So I'm excited for that. Would definitely love to get some revenge after that beating us in Seattle. That would be nice. And let's see, off the top of my head, who else is Corey Davis and I really, really, really wanted Adoree Jackson. They both top 20 picks to Tennessee. You know, with Mariota and with what they got going on, adding a receiver such as Corey Davis, and then you know, the cherry on top, just adding Adoree Jackson as well. The Titans are going to be good. I don't know if it's this year, but very soon. They're one of those teams to keep an eye on, and I think that the Browns didn't really have an image to keep, so them getting Caleb Brantley from Florida late in the draft was I mean, they didn't have anything to lose. There was no image that they're trying to uphold, and I believe that he has I don't know if there's a video or some type of domestic abuse charge against him, and the Browns took a chance on him. I believe that he was the best D tackle in the draft initially, but dropped to the 5th round, I think, and then the Browns took a chance on him. So good for him, I guess. The Browns came out really well in the draft, and Oakland came up Marshawn Lynch for free pretty much. I wasn't too crazy about that trade, but I'm happy for Marshawn at the end of the day. And I mean, he wasn't going to play for Seattle anyway, so no loss there, but sad. And what else went on in the draft? I was surprised Mitch Trubisky went number 2. That was a shocker, but I feel bad for him. He's not nobody to throw to. No, Alshon Jeffrey is going to be rough. The Bears are going to be awful. They'll probably get the number 1 pick next year. And the Browns, the 49ers, they got Reuben Foster, right? I was sad that happened. I really wanted Reuben Foster. I think that we could have used him outside with Bobby and KJ. Having Reuben Foster, somebody of his talent and caliber, we would have a new Legion of Boom at our linebacking core. But you know, the way the draft went, I'm happy those guys are in the NFL. I'm not a Packer fan at all, but I'm happy Kevin King should have been a first round pick, but glad that he got taken first overall in the second round and gets to continue his career. A kind of local guy. He's from California, but went to UW for a couple years. And UW had a great showing at the draft. I think maybe one Coug got drafted, so still go Cougs at the end of the day. But I'm happy for Abuda and all those guys. Sidney Jones got picked, arguably the best corner in the draft, going to Philly. I was looking at his Snapchat today, and he just landed. So Philly fans, I'm sure they'll be excited to see what he can do. But yeah, outside of that, there wasn't very many surprises. I thought Deshaun Watson, him and to inherit a receiver with DeAndre Hopkins' abilities it just doesn't happen. He got put in a perfect situation, way better than anything that could have happened in Cleveland. And I'm not too convinced on DeShone Kizer's abilities. So Cleveland might be right back where they are this year, next year, with that number one pick, looking for another quarterback. So we'll see. They're probably the worst franchise ever to be a quarterback for. Probably the most quarterbacks ever to play for a team in history. So, like I said, I didn't see what the special abilities or the draw to DeShone Kizer was. Kind of what I was hearing and seeing from other analysts and scouts is that they liked his size. The same excuse they gave us for Brock Osweiler, I believe. The big 6'7" guy from Arizona State, also atrocious at the game of football. So who knows? Maybe DeShone Kizer will be good. I don't think so. But what did you see? Is there any surprises, anything that you liked specifically from the draft?
Yeah, I'll just throw one name out there. He got sponsored by Charmin toilet paper, but Jake Butt slipping down to the 4th round. I think that was a steal for the Broncos because I think he was projected as a first-round pick. He goes out there and plays in the Orange Bowl, blows out his ACL, and then ends up slipping to the 4th round. But I thought whoever got him, I think if he rehabs well and he comes out there, I think he can actually be a big playmaker. And he was always open with Michigan. They'd look for the receivers. Nothing was there. They'd drop it off to Jake Butt. So, I think Denver got a big steal with that one as well. But it's always one of those things you're going to take a gamble on it. I would have taken him if I was the Lions because I know that they're always looking for tight end help. But, the Broncos, I guess, traded up to get him because they didn't want anybody else to get him, and they thought that he was going to go in the 4th round. So I'll throw that name into the mix. But outside of that, there wasn't a huge surprise to me, really. And those guys that you just mentioned, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the league because you got all these teams like Cleveland that get Jabril Peppers somehow. And you know what he's thinking. He gets that diluted sample, and he's like, all right, you know what? I'm going to end up on a good team. I'm going to slip into the 20s. And the Browns are sitting right there because of a trade. So worst case scenario for Jabril Peppers. But outside of that, I think it's going to be interesting to see. Even in the preseason, I think it's going to be fun to watch some of these guys, see who makes the team. And from there, it should be an interesting season. But I think the Hawks will be good again, definitely be in the playoffs, and see what happens with some of these guys.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Wraps it up for this episode of the Revolutionary Sports Show. Maybe we'll see you more recently than every 5 years. So we'll catch you guys next time. I'm Brian Duchaine.
And I'm Corey Sullivan.
See ya.
Peace.